Hello again. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the introduction to web application and web development. I'm going to talk about how web works, what you need to know about web application, because, of course, I'm going to talk about front-end development and Xamarin as well. But I want to use this opportunity to give you the general overview of what you're supposed to know, because we don't just code, we don't just develop web application without knowing the technical know-how. So without wasting much time, let's quickly go to the course outline. At the end of this course, you will learn the overview of web application, the evolution of the internet, the intranet, then how does the web work, the website structure. Okay, basically, overview of the web applications. Basically, web application or web app is an application program that is stored on a remote server and delivered over the internet through a browser. Now, let me quickly show you what I mean by application server that is delivered over a web server. So I'm going to hop over to my browser. Let me shut this and show you a web application. So let me hop over to Documents, Visual Studio. Let me just pick one. Now, what we're trying to say basically is that our web application is an application like this. This is an application, a web app that is being installed on a local machine, on a server. This is my local machine. I'm going to show you how it's being stored on a server. When people visit your website, all this content will be displayed for them to be able to see. For instance, you see default, you see blog, you see about us. Now let me show you how it looks like on the web. So I'm going to hop over to one of my accounts so that you understand how it works basically. Control panel. Don't worry, with all this I'm going to show you how to upload your file, how to set up everything from how to publish your application. Let me work on something and scroll. Okay, let's use our end scroll. You will notice that what we have here is what I have here. Okay, so let's hop over to our slide. So for a web app to operate, you need a server, application server, and database. Database will store your your information on the database. But if they want to communicate, so basically the browser displays the front end, just like this now. Displays the front end, or from Google, this is the front end. When you now search, when you search for something on Google, it will pass it to the server side. That is, it will pass it to, let me go up over to my slide. It will pass to server side. Server side will run the application, and if it requests for the app to store in the database, it will store on the database. If not, to just render it back to the user, to the client. So that's the overview of a web application. Let's talk about the evolution of internet. The World Wide Web started, I think, around 1996 or thereabouts. Can't really remember. But at that time, everything has to be in static information. It's going to be like static information, just like About Us website, where you read about people. You just read normal, nothing else, just to read about us, about the company. That's just a static website. It's called static because there is nothing dynamic about it, unlike apps like Google, where you process information, like this one, where you those stuffs like email. So from that, from static information to a marketplace where you can buy goods, buy for the where you can buy and sell goods like Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, and all that. Now the internet has moved from principally a static page as it was in the 90s to a dynamic generated content. Take for instance, a website like Yahoo has over 6,000 pages, if not more. And how are they doing it? And the truth is, it's very, very simple. They design a page and ensure that everything is dynamically generated. So you are actually viewing a single page. Just like, let me hop over to my Facebook now. On on my Facebook account, if you go to your own Facebook, you will see this web.facebook.com, something related to this. And over 2 billion people, over 2 billion people are using this dynamic page. So they don't necessarily have to create individual pages. So the same page is being used dynamically for for everybody. Over 2 point something billion people are using the same page. So that is why they call it dynamic. Okay, so the content is being generated via programming running on web server. We tempted to ask what programming language do they use to develop Facebook. Actually, the front end, the submission was developed using PHP, but the back end they use C++ for the processing and all that. So it's not basically on. It's like re-engineer the PHP version, not just in conventional PHP, but the back end they use C++ and other Python and other applications to develop their backend as well. Of course, you can as well use any programming language for your backend depending on your request. Okay, so and don't forget we're going to develop something related to this to have all of this, not in full-fledged like Facebook, but it will have many of these features. You'll be able to post, you'll be able to share your story, you'll be able to get a timeline like this, sponsored and all that. During this training, we talk about create and many other things, and it's very, very easy to develop. Okay, so for the internet, I think I've oversimplified this. The next one is intranet. Now, an intranet is a private network that uses web technology and that can be accessed only by authorized persons, usually members of employees of an organization. Now, you can develop apps that can work or that work within a network. Let's say, for instance, your um, Zender on your phone. You can connect two phones together, and send files. That is intranet. You don't necessarily have to connect to the web to do some stuff. So we develop one application for stores like e-commerce application, POS, point of sales software, and that we don't necessarily have to connect to the internet to get things done. We can connect all the systems together, and that application can run on all the system and communicate with each other. So I'm going to show you how you can develop that kind of application as well. And how does the web work? This is very, very important because you need to know the browser, how you need to communicate with the browser, how you need to get information out of the browser. So the browser or client request and display information, I think I've mentioned that. When you come to this google.com and this is a browser, Chrome, you will make your request here. It will send a browser make requests of servers, then server process those requests. So when you send your request like in form of HTML or protocol, something like that, I'm going to try as much as possible to use simple language or something related so that you'll be able to grasp what I'm trying to say. So when you type in your information, just like when you want to submit, you send it to server. When you send it to server process it like C#, like Java, Python and all that. They process that information to know what you're trying to do. Let's suppose you want to add 2 plus 2 or 2 plus 5. You know that, oh, 2 plus 5 will be 7. So they process that information and they give you return. That is, they will send the result back to you. So a browser makes requests of servers, then server process those requests based on the sets of rules called a protocol. On the server, a web server software processes the request and return the information to the client. I think I've said that. And let's talk about the website structure. So for your website will typically composed of many files like HTML file. So the HTML files are the files that will reside on user's computer. That is why when you come to this page now, you can actually download this page, and I don't necessarily, once I download it, to be on my system, on my browser cookies or my system, and I can access it even if I'm off. If you want to make any request, the browser needs to connect to the internet and get the request out. In the same way, your website contains HTML files, just like the one I showed you the other time. All these are HTML files, although embedded inside ASP. I'm going to explain that. Image files, just like this guy here. Object files, server scripts, server-side scripts. So the server-side scripts is something that will get users' input. I think I've talked about this one. On server side, a web server processes the information and return information. So the website structure again. Now, when you're deploying your application, one thing you need to understand is that your application cannot work 100% on all browsers, because each browser, like Edge, Firefox, Mozilla, Chrome, they have different capabilities. That is why sometimes if you're using Opera Mini, you won't be able to see the groove on that website, like the effect of that website, because they have disabled JavaScript and all that. So if you are developing any application, make sure you test it on at least 3 or 4 web servers to see that, oh, this thing looks like nice on the server. Then one other thing is that your app may work very fine on your laptop and may drag on another person's laptop. So you can, when you test your app now, when you develop your web application or anyone or mobile app, make sure you test it on 2 or 3 different laptop to see how it works, because your system may be powerful, may be too powerful, and you don't know that Pentium or dual core may not be able to access the information effectively, which is very, very, very important. Okay, so there are quite a number of technologies for dynamically generating web content. I think I've talked about this. We have ASP.NET, PHP, Java, Node.js, and many. We have about hundreds of programming languages, but here we're going to focus our attention on ASP.NET, which is C#. We talk a little bit about probably Node.js or Java, but our major focus is going to be on ASP and ASP.NET, which I believe is one of the best programming language out there, probably after Java, but I believe I prefer C# to many of these programming languages. So all of these technologies share one thing in common. Using programming logic, they generate HTML on the server and send it back to the requesting browser. It's that simple. So it's not about which programming language is the best. They are doing the same thing. Now, one thing you just need to take note is that you need to know which programming language is trending that people can easily buy into. Of course, in our own region here, I think ASP, PHP, and Java, and then Python is really, really trending. We might decide to introduce 1 or 2 things here, like content management system. Our content management system basically is an application developed by people like me, and I have my own content management system application developed to ease the work. So you don't necessarily have to go through programming. Like content management system, the only thing you need to do is just manage content. We call them webmasters or content writer. So you go to wordpress.com. There are so many content management systems out there, but you can choose the one you prefer. So with wordpress.com, you can actually build your content, your website without without anybody's input. All you need to do is just drag and drop, and all that, and your website will be ready. So for WordPress now, 30% of the web is built on WordPress, and um, it's a very powerful content management application that you can use to develop websites. So one downside about WordPress is that you may not be able to develop. Of course, you can. That is if you are a WordPress developer. We have two versions. You can be a WordPress developer using PHP. You can actually be a WordPress designer, sort of. So you don't have to do. All you need to do is just to design a good website for users, for people, or for clients, and they're good to go. But one downside about WordPress is that if you are not a gig, as an hacker now, if I want to target any website, I'll prefer to target WordPress website because I know that by the time I'm able to gain access to the backend of a particular website or a code, I can duplicate that on many websites and hack them down. You know, that is one downside of WordPress. But unlike your personal apps that you have developed, you have know the logic and all that. So that's about WordPress. But you can definitely develop anything on WordPress, and it will look very nice. And I too have also developed mine. Is a weboffice.com, which is similar to WordPress, but ours is tailored to business. So I've developed an application that will. This one is more of um, content management system as well. It's similar to WordPress, but ours is tailored to business. That is how you can make money online, how you can put your business online, and all that. So I'm going to be showing you how you can develop something related to this, but not in full scale, anyways. And CMS and blog are complex program running on the server that construct pages by combining content reading and all that. So even if you want to use CMS, it is very, very essential for you to know more about HTML and CSS knowledge, to have HTML and CSS knowledge, because you might need to tweak one or two things and all that. So thank you very much. In the next class, we'll talk about programming and all that. See you in the next class. Thank you.